Tonight, one big benefit that has come from the Wuhan virus is that everybody is doing interviews through Zoom. And as such, there have been a lot more people that have been accessible, thanks to the virus, through Zoom, and we're able to have them for you here on our show. The last few weeks, we've been filled with some exclusive interviews. They have been from some very interesting people and some people who we look forward to producing great things in Tinseltown in the future. I'm going to tell you a little bit about those tonight, have some reviews for you. Hold your horses. It's late in the year, but we do have a coveted Fist of Fury Award winner. And because it's the holiday season, tonight I'm going to show you a whole movie. All that and a whole lot more for you tonight as cinematic class is about to begin. And your professor is in. Greetings, salutations, and other sundry affair. I am your cinematic professor and purveyor of truth in movies. Tonight it seems I have to start off every show with an update on what's going on in the movie business because of the Wuhan virus. As most of you probably know, there is a second wave which is hitting, and it's hitting globally. Well, everywhere except China, I guess, is where it's hitting. And as a result, theaters that were once open here in America and in Europe are now closing down again. In fact, the only box office that is open is the Asian market. And they are doing spectacularly well. Their movies are flying out. American companies are trying to get movies over there. And this brings us to Wonder Woman. Nice segue. Wonder Woman was going to be delayed. They're getting tired of delaying these movies. So what they've decided to do, Warner Brothers has decided to do, is release the second Wonder Woman, which is Wonder Woman 1984, on streaming device. It'll be HBO Plus Max, I think it's called. And they're going to release that on Christmas Day, as well as releasing the movie in the theaters that are open. Unfortunately, a lot of the big markets are closing down. Their governors are closing everything down again. And you might have a better chance of getting it on the streaming device than you actually do in the theater. It's kind of nice to see those movies in the big theater. I've always been a fan of that, but the scare over this virus is really causing everything to shut down, regardless of the precautions that are being taken. And I really do think this is going to have a fundamental change to the way we see movies. And those companies that are smart in studios are quickly finding ways to switch to a streaming device. Of course, you're going to pay through the nose for a streaming first-run movie, but in the future, that may be your only way of seeing these things. So the news on the movie theater front, as far as the Wuhan virus is concerned, is certainly not good. The good part is that the studios are getting frustrated enough that they're going to start releasing these movies, even if it means releasing them to streaming devices or just video on demand. At this time of year, I become rather inundated with political movies. Most of the movies are under the guise of being a documentary, but they're not. They're actually just propaganda for a cause or what have you. Some movies are narrative pieces, but they're very, very heavily laden with a political message one way or the other. One such movie for that was Darkness in Tenement 45. And I really liked this movie because originally the writer and the producer of the movie, Nicole Groten, wrote it because she was really upset about the 2016 election, which Donald Trump won. However, in the time it took her to write that movie and actually become produced and released some 4 years later, the mien of the film changed completely, and it actually turned out to be a scathing indictment against these governors who think they're little mini rulers and are really just hoarding over people and closing things down and destroying businesses and lives and whatever just on the sake of a whim. So I had the opportunity to talk to Nicole in an exclusive interview. Some of you may have seen this online already, but I wanted to give a little portion of it for you here because it's a solid interview, and I certainly like the way, she's a very fascinating young lady, and she's put together a pretty decent movie. So here's a little look at the interview we did with Nicole Groten. Please help me welcome Nicole Groten. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about it.
Now, let's start off with a biggie right from the get-go. You are in LA.
Correct.
I am in Pittsburgh. Both of our states, okay, are really under the thumb of governors who are just draconian with lockdowns over the Wuhan virus and just cramping people's styles. And as I'm watching this movie, I related it to Martha, because Martha is this way. Martha wants to control her environment, the people in Tenement 45, through fear. And frankly, she's pretty good at it. So what I'm wondering is, since Martha fits into at least a good half a dozen governors that are making headlines today with their very restrictive rules, why set this movie back in 1953 when it actually is kind of relevant today?
Well, it's interesting. I think we have like two totally different interpretations of it, but because Martha, this whole film was written so many years before any of this happened. So when I initially wrote it, I actually was taking inspiration from the 2016 election. And obviously there was a lot of involvement with Russia, and there was a lot of questions of who would be the correct leader. Obviously between Trump and Hillary, things got super heated, and the question of power was constantly being brought up, and corruption. And so that's really what inspired me to write it initially. And at the time, the connection with Russia is what inspired me to look back at the Cold War and at the 50s. And I think back then, I really had no clue that this would ever be a possibility. I don't think any of us thought we would be quarantined and there would be this disease outside. So I think when I was first writing it, it just didn't seem like an option to have it be present day because of I just didn't think this would ever be a possibility.
You know, there are, I gotta say, at least 6 different movies that came out this year featuring new serial killers. But not just serial killers, masked serial killers. Maybe this ties into the virus also because we're all wearing masks now. Perhaps that's going to be the going trend in horror films, especially horror slasher films. But I want to point out one to you that I thought was really good. This is a movie called Blind. And it's interesting because the main victim, if you will, is a actress who has, through an accident, lost her sight. So naturally, she's already despondent, thinking that her career may be over when she runs into the pretty boy. And pretty boy is, well, he's certainly not pretty. We find that out when the mask comes off. But he's an interesting serial killer. I think that if the producers market this well and this movie gets out to enough, this could be a pretty good character. This could be a franchise character. I think Pretty Boy is that good. The name of the movie is Blind. Here's a look.
The anniversary of my surgery is coming up, and it's just a reminder of what I lost.
Sorry I'm late. You're in my last delivery. You're Megan Summers.
That was a fun role.
I've seen Fogstorm at least 20 times. The sequel sucks, though. Why weren't you in it?
I retired.
Nobody's gonna believe this.
Film was my life. Some of my favorite childhood memories are tied to the cinema. I dreamed of seeing myself on the big screen. And now, I can't see myself at all. I think I love you. I think I love you. I think I love you. I think I love you.
You know, in the past month, there have been two different movies that have come out, and they've concerned the multiverse. Okay, this is kind of an interesting concept. I'm not sure if science had this concept first, or if the folks who write comic books had it first, but it certainly is an interesting perspective. And one of the movies that was really interesting was a movie called Expulsion. And I had the opportunity to talk with the writer and the director of Expulsion. That was Sean C. Stevens. We had ourselves a really good conversation. He has stayed in touch with me since that time, and we're keeping abreast of all of the projects that he is now involved in. And many have opened up because he won several GAF awards for Expulsion. I had the opportunity to sit down with him and talk in an exclusive interview, and here's a part of that interview right now.
Sometimes I'd like to visit some of those other ones, and that is the premise behind a new sci-fi thriller called Expulsion, and I am happy to have with me the director of Expulsion. Would you please welcome to the show, Sean C. Sean, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here.
Hello.
Now, Sean, I got to ask you right off the bat, brother, does the multiverse really exist, or is it just in these sci-fi movies?
That's obviously up for debate, but I think that for the first time in history, ever since I think it was, 2009 or somewhere in that neighborhood, 2010, where they discovered the Higgs boson particle. And a lot of the physics actually are leaning towards the existence of a multiverse. Now, it may not look like we expect it to look, but the opening quote in the movie, for example, is a real quote from Stephen Hawking. In his last published paper, it was published post-mortem, and it says that we're not down to one unique universe. And currently, actually, at CERN, where the Large Hadron Collider is set up, it's about a 17-mile. I realize in the movie they've scaled it down to 50 feet, but it's actually they're doing some work actually right now that they're going to publish Q1 next year. About looking for actual proof of different universes. So, kind of the perspective I take is maybe all that dark matter and dark tea are just bubbles of other universes bumping into us. So there is some real science behind it, although certainly I'm not a physicist, I can't say for sure, but that is what inspired us, for most certainly, is the fact that science, it could be real.
I think maybe if we could all tap into that multiverse, we'd go back to a time before this virus hit, huh? It seems life was a lot more simpler back then. The virus truly has caused a lot of grief, especially for people who like to socialize, but not if you're a member of the House of Firuza Barbershop and Cigar Lounge. Now, the Cigar Lounge is key because it's a private club, all right? So literally the doors are open to you 24/7. There's always libations there, and of course some of the finest cigars. And Sam has this thing set up so that, my God, if you're bored in here, it's your own fault. Multiple big screens, pool table, card tables, all kinds of different games set up throughout the 3 floors, and just it's a great time. They have a lot of different plans. So if you and, say, maybe a couple of your buddies want to get together, they have a great corporate plan in which you could do that. Lockers are available in there. And as all of your favorite to-go-to places are closed down by the overlord Tom Wolfe, you know you still have the cigar lounge, and that's got to be reassuring. It's the House of Fairuza, barbershop and cigar lounge, located at the corner of South Park Road and Drake Road. Stop by, talk to Sam about it today. It'll be a move you'll appreciate as these lockdowns continue. You know, usually most of the Fist of Fury Award winners are over and done with by now, but I got to tell you, this one came out. I can't even begin to explain to you how much fun I had with this movie. It's a Christmas movie, but it is definitely adult, okay? You do not want to show this to the kiddies. Mel Gibson and Walton Goggins are in this. The acting is great. The technical people behind the camera are fantastic. This movie is just put together exceptionally well, and I think it's going to make my list as one of my favorite Christmas movies. It's, you know, that good. It really is. It's all about losing the spirit and the true meaning of Christmas, and how it might fall on Santa's shoulders to get that spirit back. The name of the movie is Fat Man, and it wins the coveted Fist of Fury Award for 2020, meaning it's worth multiple views. And it's probably a movie you're going to want to add to your home video collection because it exemplifies excellence in film entertainment. Here's a look at Fat Man.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've lost my influence. Maybe it's time I retired the coat.
You still have it.
Some kids with a deer rifle put 2 holes in the sleigh, one in me. All I have is a loathing for a world that's forgotten.
The United States military would like to procure your services.
This is a one-time deal, gentlemen. How are you, Mike? Nicole and the kids are well, I hope.
Who are you?
You just lost a big son!
What's the job?
I'd like you to kill Santa Claus.
I'm looking for the Fat Man. You can't be serious.
This is what people actually think of me. Christmas is a farce. I am a joke.
What's the purpose of your visit?
Hunting. I'm gonna kill some things.
There is a rising number of our youth making poor decisions.
What the big man's head?
Severed heads rot, they mold.
They don't want his beard.
I'm not shaving off a dead man's beard.
Your workers sure have healthy appetites.
That's why elves live much longer than humans.
And Chris, he does the same?
No, it's a giving that keeps him young.
I've come for your head, Fat Man!
Dashing through the snow, no one horse open sleigh.
You think you're the first?
All the fields we go,
Think I got this job because I'm fat and jolly?
nothing all the way. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
How come while you sleep? The Fat Man's got his eye on you, kid.
Hey, whoa!
Oh, that's Donner. Lucky it wasn't Blitzer. Should tear your package clean off.
You know, I teased you at the beginning of the show, telling you that I was going to show you an entire movie. That's true, but it's probably not what you think. Let me explain a little bit. At the end of the year, one of the categories that's often ignored by an awful lot of people is short films. Okay? But short films vie for, like Oscars just like other films do. And sometimes, if you follow the old adage, the man who says more in less is the better man. So short films have a place that's near and dear to my heart. Folks, I saw this short. It was sent to me for consideration for end of the year award, and I gotta tell you, this one had me howling. It really did. I thought this movie was exceptionally funny, and it fits in the theme of tonight's show, which is centering around this Wuhan virus and how people are all changing since this virus hit, especially in our personal relationships. The name of this movie is called Squeegee. Squeegee thing. I think you're going to enjoy this. I know I thought it was funny as hell. It's called Squeegee. Here's a look. I had a feeling you would like that. I know I did. It's kind of unique the way it was all put together. And thanks for allowing us to show that. Another interview I had was with a gentleman named Robert Apport, and his movie is Recon. As a war movie, it's more of a psychological study, a morality tale, and certainly a lot of us are going through some moral dilemmas in our current times. This one, however, is set back in Italy right at the end of the war, World War II, and it has to deal with, well, whose side is who on? It was a very interesting movie, and Robert has got himself a very interesting path set for himself. He has teamed up with Maury Povich, and they have a lot of different plans and films coming out in the future. I had the opportunity to sit down and do an exclusive interview with him, and here's a portion of that interview right now.
Robert, let's talk a little bit about Recon. Recon is a movie, as I said in the beginning, about World War II, and it's the dying days of World War II in Italy. And we're not quite sure what's happening. Just to fill in the audience, the Italians have pretty much quit the war, and Germany is retreating. And it's at this time that we come across this group in this little city in Italy, and I hope I say this right. I think it was Cassida, something like that.
Cassina, yeah, that's how we were told it was pronounced.
Yes. Okay. So we're in there, and that's where most of these events take place. Robert, this is earlier this year there was a war movie that came out called Outpost, The Outpost.
Yes.
And it was obviously it was a modern day because it dealt with the Middle East, but it was very much pretty much a go America, rah rah, and fighting spirit type movie. Recon is not quite that way. Recon, I think, deals more with the psychological burdens of war. Would you like to, augment all that?
Yeah, and it's a great question. It's a very fair question. I'll say up top, to be very clear, the inspiration for this film comes from two major places. Richard Boucher's incredible book, Peace. His father fought bravely in World War II. Richard himself is a military vet. And also from the stories of my grandfather, who escaped from Vienna when he was 16. We're Jewish. It sounds like there's a helicopter coming over me. Give me 1 second there.
Those are just some of the interviews that we had in the last few weeks. We have more coming up in the weeks ahead. These are really fascinating, interesting, and creative people. And you can find these exclusive interviews right here on Outtakes. I got to tell you that the opening sequence of this next movie is 14 minutes long. It is the best opening sequence I have seen all year long. This movie started, I was so enraptured that by the time the opening sequence was over and they started rolling the credits, I went, holy smokes, that was just the beginning. This thing is so over the top. I mean, absolutely impossible stunts and action galore. It's called Vanguard, and it stars Jackie Chan. Now, let me tell you that Vanguard is going to be released in two different versions. You're going to have the original version, which of course is done in Cantonese and it's subtitled, and then they're going to have a version that's done all in English. Now, I watched the original version. I didn't mind reading the subtitles. I like to hear the original language. I think you get a little better feel for the dialogue that way. And I just had a blast with this thing. I got to tell you, I truly, truly did. Now, you know, Jackie's a little bit older, so there's a lot of people surrounding him in his supporting cast that really build up the action and carry the bulk of it. But this thing is an awful lot of fun. And of course, as most Jackie Chan movies do, they put outtakes at the end during the credits where you see where things went wrong and people just got decimated on a set. This thing is a lot of fun. I enjoyed this movie a lot. I think you will too. It's called Vanguard. Here's a look.
We are entering dangerous territory. The enemy has more men.
Protecting innocent lives is our duty.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you're stalwart on the social media, you know an awful lot of people have been making a shift, switching over to Parler instead of Facebook. Well, yours truly, we're still on Facebook, but to make sure that we provide the latest and best holiday news, reviews, and previews, I have opened up a Parler page as well. It's gone off like gangbusters. I mean, I'm 3-4 times as many people seeing each post than it does on Facebook. So this was a fairly good move. If you want to go ahead and check us out on Parler because you're one of the people making the shift, I'll slide the URL across the thing here for you. There you go. You can check us out and follow us. All the reviews and all my news, what have you, will be up on Parler as well. So that'll be a good thing. Hey, that is really all the time we have for today. I appreciate you stopping by. As you can tell, we're not in the studio. Once again, the studio has shut down because of the Wuhan virus. So I'm happy to be coming to you from the den of my video room. Next time around, we will have surpassed our 600th show. That's a pretty big milestone. We'll tell you a little bit more about that next time. It's another exclusive interview I have for you on our 600th show. And this one, I think, is probably one of the most important because it has to do with health issues. It was based on a documentary, and I think you'll enjoy show number 600 an awful lot. Until then, it is Thanksgiving week while we are taping this, so all of you have a very safe and happy Thanksgiving. Spend it all with family, friends, and those you love. Now that you have learned what you have learned, here endeth your lesson.